Happy Friday. It's Friday. What a week. I hope you've had a great week, and welcome to this LinkedIn Live session. I'm Rick Vanover, Senior Director of Product Strategy here at Veeam, and I'm joined by
Melissa Palmer. I'm a Senior Technologist on the Product Strategy team here at Veeam.
So the topic du jour, what is it, Melissa?
The cloud. Something, yes. I know some of the people in the Eastern US, we've had a lot of rain this week, right? We've seen lots of clouds, all that good stuff. We're going to talk about a different type of cloud today.
Different type of cloud, indeed. Not the rain cloud.
Not the rain cloud.
Not the one blocking your sunny day, but the one that might be the strategic priority for your IT operation. And this is an interesting topic we're bringing here to the LinkedIn Live. First thing we did is a poll. And thank you to all of you who have participated in the poll. And let's jump over here to the screen, and we're going to jump and see what we've got going on today. So first thing I wanted to bring up was the priorities. So what we did with the poll was we just asked the market, the LinkedIn community more specifically, what are your priorities for 2020 plus? And the results are the little graphic snip here. Melissa, how do you interpret these results, these kind of softball questions and topics?
I mean, it just proves that there's so much interest in the cloud, and a lot of people out there in their IT organizations, they're probably at a different point in their cloud journey than, the company next door, right? Everybody's in a different position. It really depends on your bottom line business, how comfortable you are moving. We're going to talk about all these different things: hybrid IT, cloud apps. Are you cloud native? Are you just trying to lift and shift to the cloud? There's just so many considerations, and it all kind of ties back to your overall business strategy.
Yeah, and I think, it'd be kind of interesting if we had this data point from, say, March 1st or something like that, right? If you look at what's happened in the last 5 months, I know a lot of organizations have accelerated some things. Some other things have been put off and put on hold, due to current conditions. I'm just curious, and I was really surprised that hybrid was such a strong showing. And I got some great representation: Netherlands, India, Miami, Bahrain, Panama, and Houston. Welcome everyone. That is how I want to spend my Friday night, watching this LinkedIn Live. And there we go, illuminating the map. New technology, right? We're able to highlight. I don't know if we needed to call Miami its own country. Oh, there's Texas, but hey, I'll take it. But
yeah, so everybody watching out there, drop a comment and let us know where you're from so we can say hi to you.
Yeah, and this is a great way we can, really be together in yet a different way that is predicated by the conditions today. So let's take the first of these 4 topics. Cloud storage. That was one area. I guess it was number 3 on the poll, but first on the list. We're going to do something a little bit different. We're actually going to talk about all 4 of these. So it was kind of cheeky in how we put the poll out, but I think cloud storage is really an important part of a cloud priority. And in a moment, we're going to get into a brief demo. We're going to show the cloud storage as you can do it with Veeam. And I think that cloud storage, here we are in 2020. I remember in my blog post I did in like 2008 or 2009, I'm like, the object storage and the cloud, a great way to start is to hold backup data. And I still feel that way. If you're not yet using the cloud from a storage perspective, cloud storage is a great technology to consume for a purpose like backup.
It's a great way to dip your toe into the cloud too, right? It's a great way to start using some of those cloud resources. If you're not ready for that migration to the cloud or kind of to go the hybrid IT route, we can help you there too, certainly. But cloud storage is a great first step.
And when you say cloud storage, it's really important to realize it's not just the storage we have on premises, right? Object storage is very different. In fact, object storage was somewhat born in the cloud and then kind of made its way on-prem for unified systems. There are block and file type systems available in the cloud. Okay, so that's important to note as well. And then you also could have new types of storage, like take an Azure table or an Azure queue. That's just a whole different type of storage account. Right now, I don't necessarily have expertise in that. Veeam doesn't necessarily use it, but the services are so rich, and that's important in today's kind of cloud strategy. And the other thing to keep in mind, if anyone on here is a mathematician, you can yell at me, but the cloud is effectively infinite from a storage perspective. Sure, there might be boundaries, like like take an Azure disk, may have a size limit, or an Azure file share may have a limited number of files that can go in there. But the object storage, for example, that is effectively unlimited. And that is very interesting. When you think about limits and the explosive amount of data, think about long-term retention, keep that in mind. It's a tool that you don't necessarily have on premises to say that. So I think cloud storage is a good priority. It clocked in at number 3 on our poll. Veeam has a lot of capabilities. We'll get into that in a second. But Melissa, why don't you talk to us about migration, one of your favorites?
Yeah, migration is one of my favorite. And, one of the big challenges when you're migrating is, sometimes you don't necessarily understand the architectural differences between the cloud and on-prem, right? So you might want to start small, move a couple servers there, maybe a small app, start kind of playing with things. And you might decide, I picked the wrong cloud. So what do? Do I bring it back on-prem? Do I go to another cloud? The great news with Veeam, all of that is easy. If you want to migrate to the cloud, it's a matter of taking a backup and restoring it to your cloud service of choice. And again, once you get it there, it's very easy to bring back on-prem as well. So you can kind of stage your migration in small increments. You can do testing. The possibility, use the word infinite. I almost want to say the possibilities are kind of infinite with Veeam in cloud as well.
Yeah, good point. And a great check-in from a number of different geographies: France, Germany, Mexico, Kuwait, Bangladesh, Canada, New Hampshire, Czech Republic, Colorado, Romania, and South Africa. Wow, littering the map with this. I love it. Love it. Keep them coming, guys. What? Oh, okay. Very specific. We put Canada, the province. Must be. Ooh, that's Quebec. So that's Quebec that's illuminated. If my Canadian geography. All right. Cool. So that's great. And then, aside from migrating to the cloud, the next thing that kind of came up, and this one came in last in our poll, building cloud apps. And I'm not exactly surprised that this one came in last. Why? This is the hardest one.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I just spoke to a large organization this week. One of their biggest concerns is what the next generation of applications are going to look like. I can pick up my phone and run a mobile app that has web services in the hyperscale public cloud, maybe has a deep interaction with a file share on premises and a database on premises and potentially another database in the cloud and middleware. It's going to be really complicated to put some of these things together. So I acknowledge these are going to be hard. But I want to kind of dissect a piece of advice I've had for years around the app. And that is, honestly, sometimes just changing the app is going to be worth the effort. You'll be able to migrate it to the cloud, or you can back it up better. We all have those dinosaurs in the data center. I've seen a lot of organizations kind of use the cloud to solve some of the app problems in a very interesting way. Example, let's say you're an organization and you're contemplating a software as a service platform for a line of business function like HRMS, financial services type stuff. You might just go all in with the SaaS platform. But what do you do about this legacy app that sits on premises? I've seen a lot of organizations convert it to a virtual machine and kind of put it in retirement mode up in Azure. In fact, that was, and AWS as well, that was a really interesting use case around the Windows Server 2008 end of life that was a couple years ago. Let me go get a couple more years of updates up there in the cloud and basically take this particular infrastructure off my network, and I can, query the past and the retention, et cetera. So that's one way to go about it. The hard cut, peeling the Band-Aid off, with a hairy arm like myself, it kind of hurts, but in the end, it's worth the effort. But then, Melissa, how does the hybrid conversation came in, which clocked in number 1 on our
exactly.
poll.
And I'm glad you talk about cloud apps first. And the fact is, yes, it can be difficult. If you're talking about an application re-architecture, that's no easy feat. It's not a matter of, let me just restore to the cloud and get running, right? We're talking about fundamental change in application design. And a lot of times there is business value in that. But, sometimes there's not. Or sometimes you just need to move something to the cloud because, hey, maybe, you don't want to open up that third data center. You want to leverage the cloud. So we're seeing a big uptick in hybrid IT as people begin their cloud journeys. right? If we look at, you could almost say, probably 50% of people out there are probably running some kind of hybrid cloud at this point. It might be for one or two apps. It might be, one-off servers. I love the use case you mentioned, getting a little extra life out of that Windows 2008. So, there's a lot of interest because it's a really valid use case. And, there's a lot of people that just don't want to necessarily give up their data centers, right? Maybe the economics don't work to go 100% cloud or 100% cloud native. So I think we're really going to see mostly hybrid cloud in the future.
I agree. And hybrid is subject to, an organization's own definition.
Exactly. That's the great part about it, right? Hybrid can be as little or as much as you want.
Indeed. And so let's kind of dive into one of our first technologies. Now, this is a Veeam technology, but there are other ways to do this. They may not be as smart and as awesome, but I want to highlight the first of which that you can consume one of these priorities, cloud storage. And I want to introduce to you the Veeam Scale Out Backup Repository. Now, it's kind of the most awesome thing we've ever made. That's one way to say it. But it's a software-defined, hardware agnostic, and cloud-ready way to put your long-term backups in the cloud. Okay, so imagine in your environment on the left, you have just similar storages, direct attached storages, network attached storage systems, and maybe a dedupe appliance. You could have 3, you could have 5, you could have 1, you could have all of these, none of these, very, very versatile. That is collectively what we call a performance tier. Now, I'll kind of skip over that because it's more about the cloud, but this is actually by itself rather awesome. You could do things like put full backups on the dedupe appliance and the increments on these other 2 types because they have different speed profiles, right? Your increments are going to read faster on higher performing disks like direct attached storage. So right away, you have this performance policy engine. How awesome is that? No additional Veeam cost for it, by the way. But anyways, where we want to go and where we want to think about is the cloud. So imagine, I like to say that, especially on the left, the direct attached storage, the network attached storage, the dedupe appliances, getting more storage on premises isn't difficult at all. It's getting the money for it. That's the problem. So why not, for the long-term storage, leverage the cloud? And with Veeam, there's Amazon, Azure, IBM Cloud Object Storage, as well as on-prem or unified storage systems that are compatible, where you can consume Veeam backups in those object storage resources. And the magic thing, is it magic? No, it's just good technology, is that you can have this policy engine kick in yet again to say that the oldest backups, or even all backups with the immediate copy, go to the cloud, so you immediately have an offsite copy. And then there's a storage efficiency, and this one we don't promote enough. Let me see how good my my thingamatools are here. We just call it space efficient, but it's actually a little bit more intelligent than that. I like to call it no dupe. But basically, there's a whole bunch of metadata that we're sharing between what's on premises and what's in the cloud. And when we convert a block-based file to a page object in the cloud, we're keeping track of this metadata, and we're very smart to not move the same blocks to pages again. Same thing for retrieval. So you'll have this incredibly efficient technology to move data in and out of the cloud with Veeam. And that's a great way to start, especially if you're thinking about, I need more on-premises backup storage.
Exactly. And usually, a lot of times, we have tools to help you forecast that. But if you're not forecasting that properly, it's kind of surprise. It's like, oh no, I'm out of space, or I will be out of space soon. I need to go rush order something and get it in and get it installed. And, you can use technologies like this, offload it to the cloud. You're not going to be using it that much. Let it stay there for as long as you need it. We have policies to age it out and all that kind of stuff. And, it'll save probably a lot of money, time, and effort and heartache in the future, right? Because there's no more going to be rush ordering that storage array to store your backups.
And I'll drop a little quick plug to VeeamON, which happened in June. So at VeeamON 2020, we gave the first public sneak peek of the enhancements to the Scale Out Backup Repository. We're going to introduce a new tier called the Archive tier, and we're going to have additional object storage engines that will work in an archive mode, in addition to an additional capacity tier cloud with Google. So a lot of enhancements come in there. And this is a technology, the Veeam Scale Out Backup Repository. It is this amazing software-defined, hardware-agnostic, cloud-ready, software-defined management level secondary storage system. Wow, how many buzzwords?
That's a
And
lot.
checking in with the map, we have some new
New friends?
attendees.
Do we have new friends, Rick?
Let's see. We've got attendees from Atlanta, Brazil, Turkey, Iran, and Ethiopia. Oh, great. Welcome, everyone. And if you haven't already, drop on the map that you're here and attending. I really appreciate everyone joining. So,
Philadelphia, someone somewhat near me. Like East Coast USA, East Coast represent. Same thing with Atlanta.
There you go. Nobody. My wife said she was going to turn in, so we'll see. Welcome, everyone. So now we're going to actually switch over to a quick little demo. And the first one we're going to do is the cloud storage that I just spoke about. So I'm going to do a quick demo here, and we should be looking at the screen. And I'll start here in alphabetical order. What I want to highlight is in this lab, I make some jobs that are kind of somewhat self-descriptive, but basically I've made 2 different backup jobs. And the thought is they're going to that scale out backup repository, which is that technology I just explained. And one of them goes to AWS, one of them goes to Azure. So Melissa, pick one. Which one are we going to talk about? And we did not plan this, and I hope you the right one.
Azure?
There you go. Woo! I like it. Cool. So we'll take the Azure one. And the thought here is that we have a backup job, and it's simple, right? It's not a heavy example. You'll get whatever you're backing up. These are very small VMs, but they're good for quick demos. We're backing up these multiple VMs, and where it gets interesting is like, where do we put them? So I'm putting them in this scale out backup repository. So this is that logical entity that combines one or more storage systems and backs it infinitely by the cloud. Cool. How does it work? Well, it is just that easy. That small checkbox of where you're going to put your backup data is all that you need to do. And here you can see I've got it defined. So here is that object, scale out backup repository 01. And Melissa, what can you tell me about these 2 extents, right? It's one's cloud, and then
it's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
Right?
I've got a generic Windows resource, right? I have other resources in this lab. I could put them in there, but it's a Windows fixed local disk. And here's the magic. That's going to be a good performance profile. Right. So I don't have to make it huge, because why? I have the cloud to go deep, and I'm going to blob.
And I just want to point out something when you were showing us that job, Rick. For any Veeam administrator out there that's used to configuring jobs already, it's just a matter of selecting that scale out backup repository, right? Veeam's going to do the rest. And, the setup, again, minimal. You're used to adding repositories. These are all things you're already used to doing in Veeam land. We're just kind of combining them in a different way.
And the other thing to note is if you've already deployed your Veeam infrastructure, so if you look at your list of repositories and you see I've got a little bit of everything going on in here, but if you've already configured regular repositories, you can create a scale out backup repository and basically adopt or, somehow integrate. Oh, that's a better technical term. You can integrate it or assign it, maybe. Would be
very uplifting configuration to start leveraging the cloud, right?
Yeah, you don't have to redo your jobs. You won't have to blast your retentions. Very transparent. So what's interesting here becomes the configuration of the scale out backup repository. So I'm going to go through that real quick. And I love, or at least Kirsten made this one. Kirsten's been on a number of the shows. She set this one up. But I love self-describing names of objects. Okay, don't just call it test. Call it scale out backup repository 1. And here in the performance tier, it's 1 or more different storage resources. So I'm going to make a small change and I'll take it away, but I'm just going to add, for example, let me just throw in the ExaGrid as well. Okay, so I can build a little bit more capacity on the performance tier if I wanted to, or I could add this one if I wanted to. I could put them all in. A lot of flexibility. And then you can see that I can't put some of them in there, but I'll leave this one in. But maybe it was the other one. Let's just leave it as it is. Let's not break anything. It's not my lab. But anyways, if I wanted to, that performance policy I spoke about can go here where you could have mix of increments and full. That's what I was mentioning. So if you had multiple performance tier extents, you could set that up. But I don't want to break Kirsten's lab, so I'm not going to touch it. But the interesting cloud, that's what I want, is data locality, because I only have one extent, not two. This is where it matters. Where am I going to put the backups deep, right? I'm going into Azure Blob. Now, the funny thing is I don't know about funny, but the important thing is that right here, pick a color. How about blue? We have two options in this section that really, really make a difference. One is the move mode, which this has actually been out for a year and a half or more. The move mode is when we say, hey, once a backup gets outside of its operational restore window, it gets sent to the cloud.
Rick,
Great.
Can you do me a favor real quick?
Yeah.
Can you remind me how many copies of my data I should have?
How many copies you should have? Well,
yes.
The good news is you should have at least 3. Okay, so that's our beloved 3-2-1 rule. 3 different copies of your data on 2 different media, one of which being offsite, bonus points for one being offline or immutable, and then 0 errors if you've done sure backup. What I've done here with copy mode, let's make this pink because that's your favorite color on your blog, is I have also turned on the copy mode. Now, copy mode is when a backup is taken, it is immediately copied to the cloud. So that has made me be compliant to that 3-2-1 rule with one data capture. I've done a backup. It sits on the scale-out backup repository extent on premises, and it's immediately copied to the cloud as well. Now, I have very aggressively gone to move it older than 2 days to the cloud, but this is just dropping a number. I recommend a lot of people say 7 days on premises, and then the actual backup job sets the official retention, say a year, 3 years, forever. But right here, you can have the policy engine from a storage perspective only move stuff up to the cloud. And the magic here is that it's completely transparent, that it's in the console of I have this image and I have a restore point, whether or not it sits here or there, it's transparent for me. And the other thing to, I'm running out of colors here. The other thing to note is that it is right here. You set where am I going to go to the cloud. So I'm going to go to Azure Blob. I could drop down AWS as well. And I also recommend encryption down at the bottom. So we have a really good view. This is it. That's all you need to do. So this is not at any level difficult, but it's all right here. It's a property of the scale-out backup repository. Really easy way for you to backups from on-premises and throw them in the cloud. But now let's reverse it. What if you're in the cloud, running cloud native? Those of you using Veeam may have seen we have this external repository. Oh, I've got to switch the environments. Sorry, different lab. Pretend I didn't do that. I'm back. But anyways, now we can see in the lab that I have an external repository. And this is an interesting technology, which is kind of related to what Melissa was talking about. So Melissa, why don't you talk about Veeam Backup for Azure and how that
Absolutely. So Veeam Backup for Azure, we do also have Veeam Backup for AWS, right? But that's our solution for protecting your cloud native workloads in Azure. And one of the reasons it's so great, easy to use web interface, very powerful wizard, simple. But if you have some application teams that are really used to being cloudy, right? You might not want to hand over the keys to the kingdom in BNR, which we totally understand. You can give them this separate interface, let them do what they want. Now, the really cool thing, and there's just so many cool things around this technology and how it integrates with Veeam, is we can take your cloud repository and connect it to your on-prem BNR. So you can do cool things like monitor your capacity of your external repository in Veeam 1, of course. But most importantly is you can restore those cloud native backups on-prem with a couple clicks of a button.
And that's what I'm doing right here. So I have an Azure virtual machine that Veeam Backup for Azure has taken a backup of, and that has a policy where you can take backups into snapshots of that Azure VM, or you can go long-term into Azure Blob, which is what I've done. I'm able to open that up, and I can even, this is crazy talk, I can even copy it on-prem to then do restores locally. So if those of you who have used Veeam products before didn't catch it, but this external repository is the new kind of inventory disk resource, lack of a better word, where we can crack open the backups from in the cloud on premises to drive restores, including, I'll go back over here, instant VM recovery. Or I could throw it over to Amazon. I mean, the portability options are incredible just right here.
Yeah, and it's an easy way. Again, it's an easy way to back up those VMs you have in the cloud, right? A lot of people might be thinking, the cloud is someone else's infrastructure. Maybe I don't have to worry about it so much. Well, the fact is that you do, and the best part of it is Veeam Backup for Amazon AWS. We have built-in cost estimations, right? So when you create that policy, you're going to see how much it's going to cost you to make better business decisions. You might be surprised that it costs so little to back up your VM. So you might want to get a little more granular with your RPO and more aggressive. Or on the flip side, you might be saying, wow, I'm backing up this test environment every 4 hours. That's really expensive. I think I can be a little less aggressive. So it's going to help you make better decisions about your cloud adoption as well.
Absolutely. And, where does this go? How does this work? If you're familiar with Azure storage accounts, as you can see right here, the backups go into a blob account, right? When you do that longer term retention from Veeam Backup for Azure, they'll go into blob storage. And then, the portability, the transportability is very, very powerful. So good stuff. So let's go back to the slides here and let's talk about Melissa's other favorite topic around migration.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about cloud migration, and really this is a great image that ties everything together for you.
Oh, here's my restore, by the way. So there's my files. Sorry about that. But yeah,
that's okay. So really, it's all about being able to migrate to the cloud, bring everything back, and right on-prem from your BNR, it's easy to say, I am going to restore to either Amazon or Azure with a couple clicks, right? If you're used to doing on-site restores, it's not that much different, right? You're just going to pick Amazon or Azure instead of VMware vSphere. Super simple for anybody who's used Veeam before, also super simple for people who haven't, right? And the other piece of that is being able to go to different clouds. I tried in Azure. I really tried to make it work, but I want to try Amazon too. Sure, restore it to Amazon, back it up with Veeam Backup for Azure. It couldn't be easier to use, really.
Well, and keep in mind, this portability, if you follow all the arrows, they go everywhere.
Basically, you can go anywhere you want, is long and short of it.
And either the community editions of Veeam Backup for AWS and Veeam Backup for Azure, which you can drive from the marketplaces of those clouds, and Veeam Backup Community Edition on-prem for Windows, Linux, physical servers, and workstations, as well as virtual machines. The restore to the cloud is included in all of the free editions. Right. So that's a really important thing to keep in mind. And then kind of the other half of this comes back
to those cloud native apps we were talking about. People are starting to maybe work on some of them. Hey, back them up with Veeam Backup for Azure, AWS. Yeah. Rick showed you the external repository.
Yeah, hybrid happens. That's where we go with
hybrid does happen. I think it's happening more than we realize.
Yeah. And it's not unheard of for organizations to have some on-prem, some in the cloud, some in multi-cloud, throw in service providers as well. And I think that the real ongoing challenge that organizations need to make sure is that they have the same, from a backup perspective, they have the same, confidence. Okay, I wouldn't go into the cloud if I can't back it up and restore it well. Right? Or potentially move the data out, or at least maintain the full control of the data. And the one kind of trick that I want to bring up that a lot of people don't know is that right now today in Azure, the services, we talk about Veeam Backup for Azure, and it can write into the blobs, and it can back up the VMs, and Veeam Backup and replication on premises can store in the Azure blob, and it can restore to an Azure VM. But Azure Files, which is a storage service, we can back that up with the NAS backup engine. So there's something, an additional Azure service. The NAS backup engine can back up Azure Files, and I have a blog coming at the end of the month that'll help promote something new related to that. But again, hybrid happens, and wherever you are, we want to be there with you at Veeam, and we're right about at the end of the time. time here, and let's go over the map and take a look. We got a couple of new countries. We've got Tunisia,
Wow.
Pakistan, Nepal. This is awesome.
What
I'm
is that?
loving it.
21 countries in total?
Yeah, it's 21. We've got. I'm trying to think. I mean, man, I feel bad, but nobody in Ohio is tuned in. Anyways, we had a couple of resources, the Cloud Tier Deep Dive paper. If you saw that QR code, that's a really good place to start, as well as the marketplaces for the community edition. Keep clouding. Any other closing comments, Melissa?
Yeah, Monday, tune in with us again here on LinkedIn. We're going to have I know Danny Allen, the CTO, and Jason Buffington, one of the VPs of product strategy, will be chatting. It's sure to be a wonderful, engaging discussion when you ever have the two of those guys together, providing some industry insights. So make sure you tune in for that.
Yeah, indeed. That's going to be a great one, Danny. And Jay Buff will definitely bring some interesting content. And on behalf of the global marketing team that's helped organize and promote this content, that concludes our stream. Have a great weekend, everyone.